This video, I was showing you about how to do a loop of type while or type do while. There's another type that I want to do right now, which is the for loop. And in my own personal programming experience, I use the for while loop a lot more than I have the other kinds of loops. So let's go ahead and start doing some demonstrations of that. At a high level, the generic syntax of a for loop looks like this. For initialize a counter we'll do an expression to evaluate some condition really, and then we update the counter. So this isn't valid code here, but then in here I say do something. So here's the general idea. There are three different parts for setting up this loop that happens over and over again, and then the thing that you want to execute happens in here. And I'm just going to make a comment here that I think this syntax for a for loop is a little bit less intuitive than a while loop or a do while loop, at least the first time you see it. But because it shows up in all programming, it's worth memorizing this alien syntax to get familiar with it. All right, so let's just do something like print numbers between 1 and 100. So right here I'll say a little comment, print numbers 1 to 100. And so the first thing I'm going to do in this little condition area is I'm going to say let integer count equals 0. And I want this to keep on happening while I count is less than 101. So I want to go from 1 to 100. And actually in this case, if I want to go from 1 to 100, let me just start this off with the number 1. This is how many times I want to be going through the loop, or what the condition is for continuing the loop. And then lastly, I want to go over here and say I count equals I count plus 1. Now, what I'm doing then is just taking the number and adding 1 to it each time. There's an alternative syntax to this, which is popular and more common, which is you just do I count plus plus. In programming, the idea of counting up by 1 happens so often that most programming languages include this syntax for numbers, which says, hey, take whatever's there and count it up by 1. Okay, so let's watch this happen. We'll say console.log, and we'll do I count, and I'll hit save, and let's see if I can find a browser. There we go. So it shows that I went from 1 to 100, and then it stopped on its own. All right, so how does this happen? Well, conceptually, when this thing starts, it creates a variable and sets it equal to 1, and then it checks to see if that variable matches this condition right here, or if this condition is met. Now, when that's 1, is 1 less than 101? Yes, it is. And then you don't go over here yet. So you evaluate this. Yes, it's true. So then we drop down into here, and it says console.log, I count, and it prints out the 1. When it gets to the end of this thing we call a block because of this curly brace, the next thing it does is it goes back up to here, and it executes this statement, which turns a 1 into a 2. Now it's 2. And it comes over to here. It says, is 2 less than 101? Yes, it is. Doesn't do this over here anymore. It's going to drop right down into here and say console.log 2. Goes to the end. Comes back up over here. Count 2 now becomes 3. Then it says, is 3 less than 101? Yes. And then it comes back over here again, and it's going to print this out to the screen, drop down, and continue executing this loop. So I guess this is sort of like a reverse circle, right? We go from here to here to here to here over and over and over again until finally when this goes from the last time it prints out it's 100. We come over to here. This becomes 101. It says, is 101 less than 101? No, it is not at that point. And then it doesn't execute this anymore. And it jumps out and continues to the rest of the to the rest of the code. Whatever hypothetically, if something else needed to be done, it would do that next, but it would break out of that loop at that point. All right, excellent. Well, I'm going to pick up on more of this in just a moment.